A mother of two who was 49 years old and from Colorado disappeared on Mother's Day in 2020. The case was solved with the help of several seemingly inexplicable clues. She spent her childhood in Alexandria, Indiana. Suzanne Morphew. There, she became acquainted with Barry Morphew, who would later become her husband. They both spent their childhoods in the same town. If you're new to the channel, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. We love giving a shout out to one of our amazing viewers in every video. Today's shout out goes to Jerry Gentry, tuning in all the way from the United States. Thank you, Jerry, for your continued support as we work to bring you the most compelling and current missing persons cases from around the world. Hit the like button if you're ready for shocking revelations. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments, right where you're watching from. It's fascinating to know how globally this case has captured attention. Suzanne enjoyed a high level of popularity and was well liked by her classmates, while Barry was a talented baseball player whom the Toronto Blue Jays selected. 2 years after Barry's high school graduation, they started dating and eventually tied the knot in 1994. Suzanne was a former employee of Barry, who had founded a landscaping firm. Before she decided to leave her career as a teacher to raise her two daughters, Mallory and Macy, she worked in the education field. Since their oldest daughter, Mallory, was attending college nearby, the Morphews moved from Indiana to a residence just outside Salida, Colorado, when their children were old enough to be closer to her. On the other hand, there were reports that the move was an attempt to make a new beginning for Suzanne and Barry's difficult marriage. When Barry left their house early on the morning of May 10, 2020, he was going to drive to a job site that was located in Broomfield, Colorado, which was around 150 miles away. While the married couple was gone on a camping trip and making their way back home, the couple's children sent their mother a text message wishing her a happy Mother's Day. However, Suzanne did not respond to the message. Mallory, who was experiencing apprehension, explained to her father that she and Barry were unable to get in touch with his mother. After some time, Barry made contact with one of their neighbors and requested that they check on Suzanne and determine whether or not her mountain bike was present at the residence. Suzanne is a newcomer to mountain biking, having started very recently. Following the discovery of no trace of her or her bicycle, Barry requested that they contact the authorities. After that, Barry did not immediately go home. First, he visited a hotel where he reserved rooms for himself and his co-workers to drop off a shovel and a few other items. Only a few minutes after 6 o'clock in the evening did he make his way home. The film from the police body camera showed Suzanne's mountain bike after sheriff's deputies found it on the edge of a cliff off a road near the family home. The deputies were searching for Suzanne at the time. Where the bike was located, the investigators did not discover any clothing, blood, or other signs of a struggle. The detectives found her helmet approximately 1 mile distant, at the side of Highway 50, a few days after they had seen her motorcycle. The fact that her sunglasses and hydration packs were discovered inside her vehicle led investigators to speculate that the scene may have been staged. This led them to conclude that Suzanne may not have gone for a bike ride on Mother's Day morning of that particular year. An exhaustive search operation was carried out by local and state officials, as well as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Central Bureau of Investigation, and civilian volunteers. As they sought, they traversed a significant and challenging landscape. As the news of Suzanne's abduction shocked the neighborhood and subsequently the entire nation, a scuba diver even scoured a local canal to find her. Because it was discovered that the couple was experiencing difficulties in their marriage, Barry became suspicious. Investigators found a spy pen in a walk-in closet located in the main bedroom of the Morpheus residence 10 days after Suzanne was reported missing. According to what they discovered, Suzanne had purchased a voice-activated pen that records conversations in the hopes of catching her husband, Barry, in the process of having an affair. In its place, she accidentally captured the chats she had with her lover, who was keeping her a secret. The investigators were able to determine the identity of the person who was speaking on the audio after 6 months. In the state of Michigan, where he resided, it was discovered that he was married and had 6 children. Following Suzanne's disappearance and the subsequent actions taken to conceal their affair, he never came forward on his own. However, after the agents arrived, he cooperated and gave them access to his DNA, phone records, and passwords for accounts that had been wiped. The detectives verified his alibi for the day Suzanne vanished, and he was eventually exonerated of any wrongdoing. Records show that Suzanne and her boyfriend messaged each other 59 times in the days leading up to the moment when the investigators believe Barry took his wife's life. This occurred on May 9th, the day before Mother's Day. At a certain point in time, Suzanne sent a selfie to her lover via messaging, which the investigators referred to as her final evidence of life photo. It was at 2:26 p.m. on the day of the disappearance when Barry, who was not at home at the time, sent a text message to Suzanne, making it clear that he was on his way back home. After receiving no answer from her, Barry sent her another text message asking, "Did you leave?" which was once again met with silence from her. The investigators believe that Barry went back to his house shortly after the incident, put an end to Suzanne's life, and cleaned up the crime scene. If Barry was unaware of Suzanne's extramarital affair, what would have been the reason for him to take her life? A deleted text message that was sent by Suzanne just a few days before the investigators on Barry's phone discovered the investigation. The text stated, "I am done. I couldn't care less what you are up to and have been for years. We need to hash this out civilly." The detectives discovered a black vertical crack along the door frame of the couple's main bedroom. The crack ran vertically. They also found a needle cap made of clear plastic that was used for a tranquilizer dart in the dryer that belonged to the Morphew family. In addition, they discovered the tranquilizer pistol inside the mansion. Barry was presented with a photograph of the damaged door frame, and the investigators explained that the previous owners of the house had stated that it was not present when they sold the home to the Morphewses. The question was posed to Barry as to whether or not that was the consequence of an argument or when he was locked out. According to him, "I have no idea what that is from." The detectives believe that Barry may have broken the door as he attempted to get to Suzanne after shooting her with a tranquilizer gun. The records of Barry's mobile phone appear to reveal that on May 9th, his phone was pinging all over the house. Barry explained to the investigators that he was running about the property shooting chipmunks, which he claims were a continual annoyance. This explanation was given in response to the question of why he was using his phone unusually. On the other hand, the detectives think that this peculiar phone activity could be associated with Barry pursuing Suzanne throughout the home after he had shot her with the tranquilizer pistol. Barry reportedly told the authorities that he went to bed at approximately 8 o'clock in the evening on the 9th of May, but around 9 o'clock at night, the truck's computer indicates that the vehicle was put into reverse and backed up towards the house. Barry was taken into custody on May 5, 2021, and charged with first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and attempting to corrupt a public servant. These charges were brought against him. On the other hand, the prosecutors dropped the accusations without prejudice in April 2022, allowing them to refile the charges at a later date. In May, Barry submitted a federal lawsuit seeking $15 million in damages. Barry argued that the prosecution of the crime infringed upon his constitutional rights. Throughout the entirety of the process, his two kids demonstrated their admiration and support for their dad. On September 22, 2023, human remains were discovered during an unrelated search in Moffat, which is located more than 40 to 50 miles south of Salida. Before this discovery, Suzanne's body had not been recovered, and the investigation had been closed. Intoxication was determined to be the cause of her death by an autopsy, which also indicated that she had been given a mixture of animal tranquilizers. There was no evidence of any apparent injuries on her corpse. The compounds discovered in her blood were regularly used by Barry in deer farming, and he was the only person in the area with access to these substances. Prosecutors believe that when Barry arrived home on the afternoon of May 9th, he went into the garage, removed the cap from a syringe that was used to load a tranquilizer dart, injected the dart with a chemical, and then shot Suzanne. However, they were unable to locate a functioning tranquilizer gun or tranquilizer chemicals in the residence of the couple. Barry revealed to the investigators that he was an expert tranquilizer dart pistol shooter, and he knew how to load darts with paralyzing chemicals. He had used these darts to sedate deer and extract their antlers for unlawful sale. Barry also admitted that he had no idea how the cap got into the dryer. Barry's lawyers argue that the cap is irrelevant because no one knows how long it was there. In addition, they assert that no proof can be used to link the cap to their client. Several text messages that were exchanged between Suzanne and a close friend in the days and months leading up to her disappearance provide evidence that the Morpheus marriage continued to be fraught with difficulties. These are only a handful of the texts that demonstrate Suzanne's misery and fears regarding her husband, Barry. In one of the texts, she says, "I have no peace while he is here, and I would not feel secure alone with him." On the 25th of March in the year 2020, Suzanne sent a text message to her buddy stating that he would not discuss divorce. On the 20th of June 2025, Barry was indicted once more on counts of first-degree criminal offense. Rearrest occurred in Arizona, and he is currently being held on bail of $3 million. To face the charges against him, he was extradited to Colorado. Barry is steadfast in his assertion that he is innocent. The date of the trial has not yet been determined. An indigenous person who was reported missing and killed in 2016 has been the subject of a cold case investigation, which has resulted in the filing of charges by a cold case team. In March of 2016, the body of George David, a 65-year-old man from Port Alberni, British Columbia, who was a member of the Clayoquot Indian Band of Vancouver Island and was residing in Nia Bay, was discovered. David had been bludgeoned to death. It was clear that George was a skilled woodcarver. His death occurred as he was spending the night at Port Angeles, Washington State, before he was scheduled to travel by ferry to Victoria the following morning to attend the funeral of a member of the tribal community. His daughter informed us that George had recently sold a piece and was carrying hundreds of dollars in cash. The building that housed his dentist's office had a fully furnished basement, where he resided. George landed in Port Angeles as planned, which was confirmed by video footage, and he sent a text message to his daughter to inform her that he had completed his journey. Following that, she did not receive any further communication from him, and he did not show up for the funeral that he had intended to attend. George went out to bars in Port Angeles and was observed with Tina Marie Alorn on the evening before the two were picked up by a taxi. The investigation identified Tina as a possible suspect. According to the allegations, she was seen on CCTV footage from a gas station purchasing smokes before getting back into a taxi that took them to the dental practice. The following morning, George's mobile phone was used to make several calls and send multiple SMS. According to the texts, a person who presents themselves as Tina used the phone to send a text message to a man requesting that he buy illegal substances. There were additional texts that showed the individual selling both a laptop and a webcam. No one ever located George's phone. It is stated that on the same day, surveillance footage from a Walmart recorded Tina going to a hair salon and getting her long hair chopped. Brief. In a later statement to the authorities, the hairstylist stated that she had observed the woman having several $100s in cash when she paid for her services. During the conversation, the woman shared with the stylist her intention to surrender herself in response to a car theft warrant issued in the state of Arkansas. The stylist also reported to the authorities that she had scratches on her face. Walmart surveillance footage showed the woman making the purchase. She used cash to purchase a pay-as-you-go mobile phone. As the dentist reached the basement on the following Monday, he was under the impression that George had disappeared. However, he discovered George's deceased body inside a couch bed that had been folded up. It was found that the foot and head of the mattress had blood stains on them. George had many blunt force wounds, and blood had pooled toward the head of the mattress, which indicated that he was lying on his back when he was bludgeoned to death. The police discovered that George had been lying on his back when he was killed. In addition to that, the officers found a wrapper for a pipe wrench. The dentist disclosed to the authorities that he held a pipe wrench. Although I had purchased the pipe wrench, I never utilized it and instead put it away in the utility area of the basement. In addition, the dentist mentioned that the flat was lacking a laptop computer, a backpack, and a Wi-Fi router. Tina stayed overnight with a person she had spoken to over the phone the day after George's death. The individual with whom she stayed informed the authorities that she had left something in his flat, and the dentist was able to determine that the items that were retrieved were his router and his rucksack. Tina texted someone about illegal substances, and that individual confirmed to the police that she had sent the message. She attempted to convince him to buy a personal laptop. About a month later, volunteers picking up trash by a creek discovered a wallet containing George's identification but no cash. Tina Alorn was taken into custody and questioned in Mount Vernon in April of 2016, when she was being held on an outstanding arrest warrant. Arkansas natives were used. During the collection of her DNA, she denied ever having George's mobile phone in her possession. She was initially transported to the Clum County Jail. Still, she was later extradited to Arkansas and made to serve time there for breaching the terms of her probation, which was based on a theft conviction that was unconnected to the previous offense. The Port Angeles Police Department has determined that Alorn is the primary suspect in this case. There was a recommendation from law enforcement to charge Alorn with slaying, but the Clum County Prosecuting Attorney's Office did not implement the recommendation in 2016. The prosecution informed members of George's family. The investigation was abandoned because there was insufficient evidence to bring charges against her at the time. In 2024, after 8 years, the Port Angeles Police Department, which had initially investigated the case, requested assistance from the cold case section. The department carried out a further inquiry into the evidence as well as a comprehensive DNA analysis. Based on the study, it was established that the blood retrieved from under George's fingernails matched the Alorns. Additionally, a DNA profile that was found on a cigarette that was found at the site and on the wrapper of the pipe wrench also matched Lawrence. Alhorn, who was 55 years old at the time, was taken into custody in Arkansas on June 3, 2025, and she arrived in Washington on June 9 to face charges later that same day. She has been charged with murder in the second degree and is currently being held at the Clum County Jail on a bail fee of $1 million. The skeletal remains of a woman that were discovered in the woods of Marlborough, New Hampshire, more than half a century ago have at long last been recognized. At this point, the detectives are interested in learning the specifics of what happened to the victim and how her remains came to be located there. The unidentified remains of a woman were discovered in a wooded area on April 16, 1974. The time of discovery was 1974. This is Route 124. The investigators were under the impression that the mysterious woman had passed away in the late autumn of 1973. It was concluded by the investigators that the woman was between the ages of 18 and 48, and that she was between 5 feet 2 inches and 5 feet 6 inches tall, with hair that is a reddish-brown color. In addition to a warm-up jacket, a plaid flannel shirt, off-white work trousers, brown low-cut work shoes, and mismatched socks, the victim was dressed in a light brown corduroy coat with a white fleece inner. Her identification was nowhere to be found. The investigation was not pursued for a considerable amount of time. In 2021, a lady named Nancy Gale Erickson was reported missing by her family to the police in Brattleboro, Vermont. This was the first time that she had been formally registered as missing. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance had been unknown for almost half a century. Forensic testing was carried out between 2022 and 2024. And last but not least, in July of 2025, it was established that the unidentified bones discovered in Marlborough in 1974 were identical to the DNA of New York siblings. Nancy. He was born in 1951 in Bay Shore, New York. She received her nursing degree from Corning Community College and came from Elmira, New York, where she was born and raised. The year 1972 saw her relocation to Tampa, Florida, where she began working as a nurse at Tampa General Hospital. She was there to be with her mother and siblings. She abruptly departed Tampa in 1973, carrying a duffel bag and having no idea where she was going. The investigators were informed by her siblings that they suspected the emotional toll that her nursing career had taken on them could have been the cause of her unexpected departure. In the year 1973, Nancy was taken into custody in Bellows Falls, Vermont, for the crime of stealing an automobile from Putney, which was located nearby. According to a news report published in 1973, she told the judge that the vehicle had run out of gas and that she was on her way to White to meet some friends. River Junction is the location. She was placed on probation, continued to reside in Brattleboro, and worked at the Brattleboro Retreat while living in the community house inhabited by the community. Her family reported that they had received a phone call informing them of her arrest. However, they were not aware of any individuals in Vermont that she might have known. On October 30th, Nancy, who was 21 years old at the time, unexpectedly departed both her place of employment and her house, and she was never reached again. New Hampshire State Police Detective Sergeant Kelly LaPointe said in a statement, "After years of work on this case, putting a name to Nancy Gale Erickson is incredibly meaningful. It is more than solving a mystery. It is restoring her identity and honoring the life she lived. She was never forgotten. We are deeply grateful to everyone whose efforts made this possible." Now the focus shifts to figuring out how and why she passed away. The authorities are requesting that anyone who may have known Nancy get in touch with them. They are also eager to interview with previous workers of the Brattleboro Retreat, those who resided at the communal house in 1973, students who attended Corning Community College in New York during the years 1971 and 1972, and staff members at Tampa General Hospital are all individuals who are encouraged to contact the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit if they have any information on this case. The perpetrator of the horrible death of a beloved father has been discovered thanks to DNA testing. Stephen Kilwein relocated to Bozeman, Montana in 1986. Stephen Kilwein lived in a red and white house located on the corner of 9th and Mendenhall. His 5 children adored him, describing their father as a funny and kind soul. But on June 13, 2021, the Kilwein family grew suspicious after not hearing from their father. They called 911 to perform a welfare check. Tragically, the responding officers discovered Stephen deceased inside his home. 2 days later, an autopsy was performed in Billings, and the medical examiner determined his cause of demise to be slaying and noted the man had endured multiple chop-style injuries. The Bozeman Police Department detectives then initiated an investigation. During the initial crime scene sweep, they located an Apple iPhone in Stephen's front yard. They then determined that the phone belonged to Austin Klaus. Later, when the detectives interviewed Austin, he reportedly claimed it was his cell phone. Call detail records were analyzed by the FBI Cellular Analysis Survey team, which showed Austin's cell phone to be in the area of the crime between approximately 12:15 a.m. and 1 a.m. on June 13, 2021. A neighbor told the detectives that they heard some noise over the weekend, one early morning around 2 a.m., describing the sound as possibly three people having an argument or talking loudly. The neighbor then reportedly heard what sounded like something falling and making a sharp noise, after which the neighbor heard someone say, "Oh shit." A detective interviewed Austin to find out why his cell phone was recovered in the front yard of the crime scene. He said that he was walking in the area of the crime scene and must have lost his phone. He informed the detective that he had been drinking in downtown Bozeman from the night of June 12th into the early morning of June 13th. He reportedly told the detective that he wanted to go home before his friends. So, he started walking toward Kimmel Avenue where he was staying with friends. Austin allegedly stated that he would provide a voluntary DNA sample but changed his mind the following day. On September 9, 2021, the detective received a phone call from Austin, who reportedly said that after speaking to his family and consulting an attorney friend of the family, he was declining to consent to a buccal swab and fingerprinting. According to the family and the community, the case then progressed without further developments. In November 2021, the detectives carried out a trash pull from Austin's residence, during which they retrieved a water bottle for DNA testing. The water bottle was then sent to the Montana State Crime Lab for analysis, and the lab was able to obtain a DNA profile from the water bottle. Additionally, DNA was collected from Stephen's fingernails and pajama bottoms. On July 10, 2025, Austin Klaus, who was 25 years old at the time, was arrested and charged with the 2021 case of Stephen Kilwein, who was 79 years old. Klaus was charged with deliberate slaying and is currently being held on a bond of $1 million after appearing in Gallatin County. The analysis revealed that the mixture of DNA obtained from Stephen's pajama bottoms matched the water bottle. Justice Court. Klaus is set to appear in district court on a date yet to be determined. If found guilty, Klaus faces life in prison. A newborn girl was found fatally stabbed and dumped in a trash can in Franklin, Indiana. 31 years later, the baby girl's parents have finally been identified. On April 13, 1994, two juveniles searching for recyclables while they were walking home from school found the body of an unidentified newborn girl in a trash can at Temple Park in Franklin, Indiana. An autopsy revealed that the baby girl had been stabbed to death shortly after her birth. She had multiple stab wounds, and it was ruled that her life was ended. The officers who were investigating the case named the girl Baby Hope. With the help of the community, they collected donations to provide. On July 14, 2025, the Franklin Police Department announced significant new developments in the 31-year-old case. With the assistance of the Indiana State Police Crime Lab and advanced support of DNA technology, the investigators were able to bring this case to a successful conclusion. The case had been closed for some time. In 2019, the case was officially reopened. Utilized genealogy to identify the baby's biological mother. She was identified as Cheryl Dawn Larson. At the time of the baby girl's demise in 1994, Cheryl and her then-husband lived near Temple Park. Cheryl passed away in 2018 and could not be interviewed. The investigators determined that Cheryl's then-husband was not the baby's biological father. The detectives spoke with Cheryl's family, friends, and neighbors from 1994 and positively identified Paul Richard Shepard as the biological father of baby Hope. Paul has been cooperative with the investigation, and upon learning he was the baby's father, he chose to name her Hope Shepard. Franklin Police Lieutenant Chris Tannell said, "While we remain deeply saddened by the tragic and unjust loss of baby Hope, we are grateful to finally achieve some degree of closure after 31 years. With Cheryl's demise, the investigators were unable to determine more about her level of involvement in the baby's death. Franklin PD said formal charges will not be filed at this time, but that could be reconsidered if new information emerges." Johnson County Coroner Mike Pute noted that investigators are still seeking anyone with additional information to come forward and help provide a complete closure to the case. The official shared a statement on behalf of Paul, saying that he was shocked and grieved to learn that the child known as Hope was his child. He was utterly unaware that Cheryl, a woman with whom he had a brief relationship, was pregnant with his child. He first became aware that the child was his after voluntarily providing a DNA sample to the police. The shock of this revelation was overwhelming and continues to be so still today. Paul continues to struggle with the grief, which has exacerbated his health conditions and from which he can find no relief. He cannot escape the thought that he fathered such a child and subjected it to such evil. There are no answers that shed light on his child's case, and he finds no relief from the unknowable grief he endures.